You are listening to Lighthearted, the official podcast of the United States Lighthouse Society. My name is Jeremy D'Entremont. Welcome. My co-host is Cindy Johnson, volunteer for Friends of Portsmouth Harbor Lighthouses and copy editor extraordinaire. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Jeremy.
Today is August 6th, 2022, and this is episode 185 of Lighthearted. In a few minutes, we'll hear an interview I did during a recent trip to New York with Abe Ellis, who manages the Salmon River Lighthouse and Marina in Selkirk. First, has anything notable happened on this date in lighthouse history, Cindy?
Well, Jeremy, something notable happened on August 6, 1885. On that date, Minnesota Point Lighthouse in Duluth, Minnesota, was discontinued after only 27 years of service. The ruins of the old lighthouse still stand on Minnesota Point, which is considered the longest freshwater sandbar in the world. You can walk out to the remains of the lighthouse on the Park Point Nature Trail.
Yeah, I walked out on that trail to the ruins of the Minnesota Point Lighthouse in late April with my friend Nick Korstad. It was about a 3-mile round-trip walk on a super windy day. It was unbelievably windy, but it was a nice walk. It was kind of a long way to go to see the ruins of a lighthouse. It's just there's no top on it. It's just maybe the top 2/3 or so of this stone tower. But near the lighthouse, there were also the ruins of the old lighthouse service Duluth Buoy Depot from the early 1900s. I knew absolutely nothing about that before we went out there, but Nick knew about it. And we explored these old buildings, these old concrete buildings from the early 1900s that are now kind of like a museum of graffiti. So that was interesting. Also, when you get to the tip of Minnesota Point, you're actually just a few hundred feet from the border with Wisconsin, and you can look out and see the Superior Entry Lighthouse about a half mile from there. So, Cindy, please help me tell our listeners about the Salmon River Lighthouse and Marina and today's guest, Abe Ellis.
Sure, Jeremy. The first permanent white settlement at the mouth of the Salmon River in New York, at the eastern end of Lake Ontario, was established in 1801. Fantastic Atlantic salmon fishing was a prime attraction, while some settlers took up farming nearby. In the early 1830s, it was determined that the harbor at the mouth of the river could accommodate as many as 30 ships, and a lighthouse was established in 1838.
The lighthouse was built with stone from a local quarry and took the form of a 2-story keeper's house with an octagonal tower mounted on its roof. It was topped by a so-called birdcage-style lantern room, which remains in place today. Inside the lantern room was a 6th-order Fresnel lens.
There was a proposal for a canal that would have connected the Salmon River to the Erie Canal system, but it never came to be. The importance of the harbor faded, and the lighthouse was deactivated in 1859. The building was used by the Life-Saving Service for a while, and then Lucius Cole, who had been the lightkeeper from 1849 to 1854, moved back into the lighthouse and remained until his death in 1890.
In 1895, the lighthouse was auctioned by the government and sold for $155. The buyer, Leopold Joe, incorporated the building into a hotel complex. The next owners, the Heckel family, doubled the size of the hotel. Jim Walker bought the property in 1987 and reopened it to overnight stays in 1995.
In 2014, the lighthouse was bought by the Barnell and Ellis families, longtime summer residents of the area, and they set about restoring and revitalizing the property. The lighthouse is open for daily and weekly rentals, and there are fishing charters available from the Salmon River Marina.
Abe Ellis is the general manager of the Salmon River Lighthouse and Marina, and I had the opportunity to visit with him at the lighthouse a few weeks ago. Let's listen to that conversation now. I am here with Abe Ellis at the Selkirk or Salmon River Lighthouse, and I'll ask you to clarify that, what the official name of this lighthouse is. I want to ask you about that. But I'm here with Abe at the lighthouse, which he owns at the Salmon River Lighthouse and Marina here and in New York, and it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Abe.
Oh, we're honored to have you here, and just one quick clarification.
Yeah.
I don't own this building. It belongs to a member of our family. We're all in it together.
I should have asked you about that to
pieces,
clarify that.
Without going into the whole business
Okay.
organization, which is irrelevant. I don't want people to think that I own it.
Okay. No, I'm
Somebody
glad.
very near and dear to me actually owns it, and I am his caretaker.
Okay. Thank you very much.
He's a relative.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate that. I believe your family and another family was involved in purchasing it some years ago.
Yes. Well, the Ellis side and the Barnell side.
Yeah. Oh, it's all the same family. My wife is a
Barnell. Yeah. We are now family,
right.
Having known each other since ninth grade in high school and having been best friends. And then I married his sister 7 years ago. So, or 8 years ago now. So she and I own the whole business operation.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the real estate belongs to her brother, and we own the boat slips, the dockage, all the things you could shake out of the buildings. We own all that, and of course the whole inventory of the store and the warehouse over there.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yep.
I wasn't totally clear on the ownership status. So thank you.
We call it ours.
Yeah.
We're a very, very close knit family, and when one person owns something, we all own it.
Oh, that's great.
We are.
I'm glad to hear it. That's good to hear. Clarify for me the official. Is there an official name to this lighthouse? Should we call it the Selkirk Lighthouse or the Salmon River Lighthouse?
Historically, it's been known as the Selkirk Lighthouse. When we opened up the business in 2014, it had been operating as Lighthouse Marina.
Okay.
I started thinking about that. I said, there's two distinct things here, and you need to separate them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because it's on the Salmon River, obviously, it's referred to as the Salmon River Lighthouse, but it's actually, officially, it's the Selkirk Light at the Salmon River Lighthouse and Marina.
So, obviously, I want to talk about the lighthouse mostly, but before we get more into that, you have a very interesting background both in real estate and the military.
Correct.
Right? You were a Navy captain and pilot?
I was a navigator. I retired as a Navy captain out of the Naval Reserve Force.
Mm-hmm.
I did 8 years active duty out of a Naval Air Station in Virginia Beach, flew off the John F. Kennedy, flew a very capable all-weather attack airplane for 7-8 years, and then decided to leave active duty and got into commercial real estate, and I did that for 25 years while I continued through with my growth and advancement in the Naval Reserve Force. And I retired about 15 years ago as a captain, one step below admiral. So that's been a very nice retirement. As a reservist, you don't get any retirement benefits until you turn 60.
Right.
So my wife worked very hard to keep me alive till 60. After that, I didn't care.
Okay. So, and you own more property around here than the lighthouse and the buildings right next to it.
Yes, we have, again, our family owns 3 camps. They're actually real family homes. There are some very rustic camps right across the river. You can see them from the seawall. Our two of the 3 over there, you can see them from here. And that proximity to the lighthouse is one of the reasons why we could tell things weren't going as they should be going over here back in the 2012-13 time frame.
Yeah.
And but this lighthouse and this property has been been part of our family summer times, I guess, so to speak, up here. The hotel, which we tore down, which had been boarded up since 1987, had a tremendous piano bar and what they called the Saturday night soiree, and a great big porch along the whole front of it. But unfortunately, in 1987, shortly after there were new owners in 1987, the family that we bought it from, shortly after they obtained ownership, or there was a bait shop down next to the river where our kayaks are now, where there was a concrete foundation until a month and a half ago we tore it out. There was a bait shop there, and a propane leak had developed at some point in the evening on a Saturday night. And at 1 o'clock in the morning, when the Coke machine inside the building kicked off, the spark blew it sky high, blew the windows out of the hotel, blew the windows out of the lighthouse, leveled 2 little cottages that were back along the river. Tremendous explosion. It was felt for 5 or 6 miles. Long investigation into all that. Never determined if it was intentional or not intentional. So realized that the hotel was in pretty bad shape. But nobody was killed. There were people in the bar, but nobody was killed. Probably some scrapes and bruises, flying glass everywhere. And they boarded the hotel up in 1987, and that's the way it sat until we acquired ownership in 2014. After that, we spent about a year and a half with architects engineers, historians. What are our options? Can we save this building? We want to bring it back to life, or we want to get rid of it. And ultimately, the decision was to tear it down because it had no historic value, really. And it was essentially could be a money pit because nobody could tell us exactly how much it would cost us.
Yeah.
I stepped through the floor twice when I was taking engineers through the building. It basically became a big paint storage building. I had hundreds of gallons of paint in there that I had to dispose of. Some lead-based, some latex, whatever. But we ended up tearing it down early in 2016, which gave us this beautiful lawn out here.
Yeah.
Which the plan is to one day build a restaurant there. Because there was a hotel and a restaurant and a bar in there, German fare, and we've always had that on our longer term plan since we acquired ownership of the property to bring some dining back down here. So it may be a year, maybe 2 years. We don't know yet for sure.
Yeah, sounds great. German fare because of the owner.
The Heckel family is who owned it from the early 1900s until 1987. German family.
But before them, Leopold Joe?
Yeah, he was operating it as a sort of I want to say bed and breakfast, but he would rent out portions of it. I don't know the details of how he did it. In fact, he was the day he died, he had gone into town to get rations for his guests, supposedly, and died of a massive heart attack. And I met his granddaughter, two of his granddaughters, who were probably 75.
Oh, really?
Came here about 7 years ago. Tracked me down, looked me up. Can we come see? We're the granddaughters of Leopold Joe.
Oh, neat.
We got a picture of the three of them, 2 or 3 of them out front with my wife and me.
Huh. How about the Heckel family, or any? Are you in touch with any of them?
One of the Joe the third, I believe, is who he is. His father or grandfather started the ownership back in 1914, I believe, and then 30 or 40 years later, Joe, who's my age, late 50s, early 60s, his father took over, and he owned it and operated it until 1987, when he sold it to the Walker family, out of Maine, I believe, is where the parents of Jim Walker operated it very aggressively, very well until early 2000s. Yeah. And we've never asked. We just heard the scuttlebutt. There was some sort of a falling out in the family, and he decided he'd had enough, and he was leaving. Okay. So the running the business at that point got handed down to a nephew, his sister's kid in Jersey, who was a young husband, father, new kids, whatever. He tried to run it, kind of remote control. He would come up and go back, come up and go back, but it seemed like every year it got a little bit further out of reach. Yeah. When we would come over to get gas for our boat, there was never anybody here. We finally decided to contact him. He agreed to let us walk through all the buildings, and we saw a lot of opportunity. So, ultimately, over the next 6 to 8 months, we were able to negotiate a fair, reasonable purchase contract, and we took ownership in April of 2014 and hit the ground running.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I just want to mention for people listening, some Lighthouse buffs, when they hear the name Jim Walker, there was another really well-known Jim Walker in the Lighthouse world who I knew personally. I think I had a little bit of correspondence with the Jim Walker here.
He was very active. And he did some great things for publicity for this thing. I mean, he wrote some great articles, and he really got the transitioning from Grandma Heckel actually lived here for many years. She lived in this building. Okay. And then when she was gone, I don't know how much Joe Heckel actually rented it out, if he did it all, but I know that Jim was instrumental in not only getting it back onto the map as a place where you could come and rent and enjoy it, and he also got the light reactivated and recognized as a Type 2
aid to
navigation. Yeah, Jim did that, and that was part of the Lighthouse Bicentennial in 1989.
Excellent. Yeah.
He was a go-getter.
Yeah.
Sure. He stops by. He lives in the area. He stops by once or twice a year, see how we're doing.
Okay. Well, I didn't realize. That's great.
He shares a few more stories with me. And,
yeah. But I just want to let people know that if anybody knows the other Jim Walker, he passed away a few years ago, but he was kind of the spearhead for the restoration of a lighthouse on Cape Cod, Race Point in Provincetown at the tip of Cape Cod.
I have heard of him.
Yeah. So he was the other Lighthouse Jim Walker. In case anybody's listening, says, is that the same Jim Walker? No, they're two very different guys. But if we could, we'll talk a little bit more about the present in a few minutes, but I just want to touch a little bit maybe on the history of this place, the much earlier history. First of all, it was established in 1838, right, as a lighthouse. It was built at that time. But it was only active in its first incarnation, it was only active as an aid to navigation for like 21 years, right, until 1859.
It goes back, it's between 1858 or 1859.
Yeah, all around there.
Stories differ, but 21 years.
Yeah.
And when they authorized construction of this lighthouse and awarded the construction bid, the plans were on the table to dredge a canal from the Salmon River to Oneida Lake, or the Oneida River, which is on the Erie Canal system.
Right.
And then turn Port Ontario into a quote-unquote a significant shipping port. 20 years after they built and activated the lighthouse, the plans had dissolved. So they said, well, we don't need a lighthouse. We're not going to put a port there.
Right.
And so they deactivated it.
Yeah.
And over the years, lightkeepers remained. They were here to maintain it. They kept the light burning on and on and on until the auction, late 1890s or early 1900s, the U.S. government auctioned it off for some outrageous price. I think it was
$155 is what I had.
$155, So it's crazy.
I think the guy who was the last keeper, from what I read, I'm not sure.
Cole, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was Cole. Yeah, Lucius Cole was here, I think, until he died in 1890. That's I don't know if that's accurate, but that's what I.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So he was here a long time, 1849 to 1890. He lived here for over 40 years. So the building itself is, I think, pretty striking. I don't know of any other lighthouse that looks like this. No. Beautiful stone building, and
with 18-inch thick walls.
Okay.
If you look at the windowsills in the main portion of the building, they're exactly the thickness of this 18 inches of lake rock.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing. And it goes all the way into the ground. There's a full basement downstairs.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's
underneath this portion. This is the crawl space underneath here, but
it's kind of rustic construction the way the stones are put together, but I think beautiful,
No, it's iconic. I mean, there's no question about it. That the fact that it's a bird cage, and the fact that it's the way it was built, and the fact that it has the residence right inside. The lighthouses. A lot of lighthouses, it's next door, or whatever they call it, almost a hostel next door, or a lightkeeper's quarters. So when people come here, they're actually in the lighthouse.
Right.
It's very, again, it's a unique characteristic that not all lighthouses enjoy.
Yeah, I know. Any lighthouse that can have overnight stays, that's such a great thing. People love it so much, as you well know.
Do, yep.
Lighthouse buffs, I think, just jump at the chance to stay at these places. You just mentioned the birdcage-style lantern. You and I talked about this a few minutes ago before we started the interview here. We agree that there's only one other surviving birdcage-style lantern in good shape in the country. That's at Prudence Island, Rhode Island.
Yep.
Yeah, and if people don't,
there will be no more. So we're going to make sure
unless somebody does
a
replica, but not an original one. Yeah,
we're going to make sure we take care of it, and it's solid up there. I've been up there. I'm up there sometimes as much as once or twice a week, and I take people up who are staying here, and we walk outside, walk around. The iron is still solid, rock solid. And I think it's the original copper roof over the dome that we've painted to preserve it and protect it, and it looks better with a nice clean coat of silver paint on it than it would when we bought it. It was turning black, and it was we replaced. There are 115 panes of glass up there in that light room. We replaced every one of them about 4 years ago. Had them all hand cut, and they're not exactly the same dimensions, so we had to do quite a project to replace those. Because every spring when I get up here, the birds had busted their way through one of the very brittle glass that we had up there before. So we thickened it, and I haven't had a bird since.
Small birds or larger birds? What kind
Pigeons.
of pigeons? Oh,
seagulls.
Wow. And gulls. Yeah, historically, as you've heard this or read this, lighthouses had a problem with birds flying into the lanterns typically, but often I think it was because they were maybe attracted to and then blinded by the light.
Could be.
And would fly right into it, of course. So the previous owner, Jim Walker, actually reactivated the lighthouse as a navigational aid. Do you still have a light in here now?
Yes, we do. It's an electric light that has 6 bulbs that changes automatically It knows when one burns out. They're actually the little bulbs that used to be in the first wave of high intensity desk lamps that came out in the late 60s and early 70s. A little tiny bulb, and would get hot. You couldn't touch it at your desk, and that's what's up there. So we have to. I check those every year, and I have a supply of replacement bulbs, and we rewired it. At one point, it wasn't working at all, so we had to rewire it and get it working again a couple of years back.
Is anything that stands out for you about the keepers that lived here? There's probably not a lot recorded about any of those people, is there?
No. I know that the fable that there's a ghost in here is tied to one of the keepers, and supposedly it was the daughter of one of the keepers in the late 1800s who was up in the tower, the lightkeeper, her father. Yeah. And again, this is all, there's no way to determine if it's real or not, but it's a great story. Yeah. She supposedly took him dinner up in the tower, and on her way down, she fell, lost her life, fell down the stairs. Okay. And her name is Mary, and she supposedly is the one who moves people's shoes or makes noises in the middle of the night with no reason for why there should be a noise. We've heard multiple occurrences of different things in here while people are staying. Yeah. So, it's good-natured fun, but that was probably, and I don't remember which keeper it was, but there are two pictures upstairs. One of an elegant woman with lacy, 1800 dress on, and then a picture of supposedly her father, full beard, just really rugged-looking guy, like you would picture a light keeper or something like that, or a ship captain. But again, they're not confirmed, and there's really no way to confirm it. But.
So if it was late 1800s, wouldn't that have had to have been Lucius Cole?
Might have been. I don't know. I like I said, I don't know what the whose daughter it was that supposedly haunts the lighthouse.
I'm just wondering if anybody's done any research to see if he had a daughter named Mary, or any record of...
It could be mostly made up. I don't know.
It very well could be. There's no doubt about that. But it is a good story. And have you experienced anything out of the ordinary?
I have never spent the night in this building.
Okay.
Not for any reason other than the fact that we were so busy getting it ready for occupants. The other three cottages, the first year, I did stay in each one of them a couple of nights just to kind of shake them down to make sure we didn't forget anything, like an egg turner or a good-sized spoon to stir the sauce with. And so we would actually cook and live, shower, sleep for a couple, 2-3 days in each one of the places, and kind of figure out what are we missing. So, but when we got done with this one, it was immediately on the list of desired places for people to stay. So, it's a lot better for me to have somebody enjoy it who can't be here every day. So.
Sure. Yeah.
But no, I haven't experienced anything other than seeing some funny looking things up in the tower based on a certain time of the day, sort of like some movement up there, but then it doesn't last very long and it's gone. And you take a picture and you can't capture it. It's weird. I mean, people have taken pictures of a woman in a wispy dress up there, who again is attributed to be Mary, and the ladies have seen, or people have seen it, swear that they saw it up there, but yet when they go take a picture, it doesn't work.
But somebody took a picture where it looks like a woman in a wispy dress?
Supposedly, yes. And my wife one day came inside, could not get her camera to take a picture, her phone camera. It would not allow her to take a picture. And my wife, she swears it's true. The minute she walked outside, for whatever reason, the phone camera worked fine. It was the strangest thing. And she swears on her father's grave that it happened. And I believe her. So I don't know. It's creepy.
It's interesting. And I don't discount anything. I always, people who have listened to this podcast have heard me say a number of times that I'm an open-minded skeptic. I don't rule anything out, and I've actually had some experiences. So I know that other people scoff at it and just think it's a big joke, but I've seen and experienced enough to know that not necessarily
paranormal.
The story of Mary may or may not be true. I think what happens sometimes is people experience weird stuff and they kind of cook up a backstory to try to explain it.
Could be.
Yeah, so I think maybe there was somebody who was good at making up stories along the way, but maybe it is true. But it's
I mean, I've come in here and found my housekeeper comes in. She puts the pillows in a certain spot, and I came in here and I called her up. I said, "Where are the two pillows that belong in this bedroom down here?"
Yeah.
Nobody's been in the building since she left.
Yeah.
I find them upstairs. She said, "Dad, I know my stepdaughter. I know where I put them. They're upstairs. I found them, or they're downstairs on the bed." I said, "Well, they're not there. Special pretty sham pillows." And I find them upstairs underneath the throw pillows on one of the beds in the bedroom upstairs. No rhyme or reason as to how it got up there.
Wow.
Yeah. Weird.
Have you ever thought about having one of these paranormal investigation groups come in here?
I don't have time to do that. I'd rather let it kind of be gossip than confirmed or not confirmed.
I think I kind of agree with you. It's kind of nice of being kind of a mystery and kind of
that's my really only the first hand experience with something really strange happening in here. Those pillows ending up upstairs.
That is
and
really
not just on the bed, but underneath pillows that are up on the bed.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Wow. Well, we should probably change the subject from that a little bit.
Yes, we don't want to scare people away from coming to stay with us.
A lot of people love this sort of thing.
Well, we've had people walk in and go, "Hey, I just read the rocks. All these rocks on the fireplace tell stories of different things, different special moments for families that have been here. A lot of mention of Mary, and we have had more than one guest come over very quickly to the store after reading a couple of the rocks and wanting me to confirm or deny that there's a ghost in here. Because if there's a ghost, we're leaving now." And I said, "Well, we don't have any." I said, "That's all nonsense. Fun stuff. It's all fun stuff."
Yeah.
So I've never had anybody say, "I believe those rocks more than I believe you were leaving."
Yeah.
Never happened. So.
And after you told her that, she didn't have Mary didn't visit her after that. No. I hope. Yeah. That's good.
She stayed away.
That's good. Mary's smarter than that. Let me ask you, getting back to your background as in the Navy, do you feel that your military background did that have anything to do with your interest in lighthouses, or did you have an interest in lighthouses? Maybe that's the first question I should ask here. Did you have an interest in lighthouses before you got?
Interestingly enough, before we really went after this place in earnest, my now wife, then my girlfriend, would travel a lot in the Virginia Beach, Middle Atlantic region on our motorcycle. We would take 2 or 3 night day trips.
Okay.
And wherever we went, if there was we would favor the coast, the Outer Banks of North Carolina, Myrtle Beach, Hilton Head, those kind of places.
Yeah.
Or up the Chesapeake Bay. I've lived near water or been affiliated with places near water my whole life. Up here with her brother as my best friend from 9th grade on. My mom and dad had a boat all through high school. We would camp in the Thousand Islands on an island with our tent, or then they had cabins. So everything in my life that related to leisure activity usually had something to do with water. So as we were traveling together on the motorcycle down to the Outer Banks or up into Maryland or the Naval Academy or Rehoboth or Dewey Beach or whatever in Delaware, we would if there was a lighthouse, we'd go find it. Well, lo and behold, in 2013, after we had been to multiple lighthouses, we decided to come after this one. Well, it was a huge coincidence, basically.
Yeah.
Not so much my military experience, other than the fact that when I was in the Navy on active duty and away from my home base, we were on a ship on water. But I loved it. I loved flying over water. I loved, like I said, ever since I was a little boy, our summer vacations usually involved a beach.
Yeah.
So coincidence more than anything, but it's just an inborn love of the waterfront, the ocean front, whatever.
Yeah. Well, it worked out nicely.
It did.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit already about some of the improvements by replacing all the glass and the lantern, among other things. Have there been any other major preservation projects you've done?
Yes, very much so. Completely new roof in 2017. Actually, we did the main structure one year, and then we did the roof over the kitchen. It's a composite material roofing, which will last forever, made to look like slate. And if you look closely at it, you can see different shades of color in there. We did that on purpose to give it that more authentic, antique look of an old building.
Yeah.
In addition to that, all the windows have been replaced. Top of the line windows. They were, I think, total of 3 windows in this building opened. 2 of them were in the kitchen, and I think one Well, we could get 2 of them open because we had window air conditioning units in each of the living rooms, but the rest of the windows had been painted over and sealed shut for so many years, had some gaps in them, so bugs could get in at night when the lights were on in here. So last year, the decision was made to replace every single window in the building, and now they're completely airtight. And as you open the window, the screen rolls out of the bottom of the window, and it gives it a cleaner look when the window's closed, so you don't look through screens. And then on top of that, a completely new propane heating system with new ducting and central air conditioning with using that same ducting.
Wow.
We refinished the original 1838 floors in the main part of the Lighthouse building.
Wow.
We've upgraded, like I said, we added a whole new bathroom upstairs just within the last 2 months, which gives people the option to rent just the upstairs without the kitchen, or they can rent the downstairs with the kitchen, or they can rent the whole Lighthouse.
It's pretty impressive. It looks absolutely beautiful in here.
Thank you.
The windows look great. And,
made a huge difference.
Yeah, you've done an awful lot here. So do you have any other projects like that? Anything lined up at this point?
I think when we finish, we've still got a couple of finishing touches to put on the upstairs renovation with the bathroom. I think once we get that done, we're going to be pretty well set here for a while. Our focus is going to shift from here to developing some sort of a dining establishment just a little ways away from the Lighthouse here.
Yeah.
We've put in all new plumbing for the septic system. Started it last fall. We completed that a couple of weeks ago. So we now have very efficient septic handling capabilities that we didn't have until now. And it was a holding tank situation. This building has a septic system, which we had to do a lot of work on the first year, but we upgraded it, brought it back up to where it needed to be. And I think now with the completion of the upstairs renovation, with adding a bathroom, we're in pretty good shape here. I mean, just small things over time, replacing worn out things, or maybe seeing an upgrade to a piece of furniture that we think another piece would work better in whatever place. We're always looking wherever we go for ways to tweak this building a little bit nicer, and our other cottages too, and our homes across the river. It's a we kind of keep our arms around all of it at the same time. But having been focused on this building now for the last 2 months to get the bathroom and the bedroom refurbished down here, that's pretty much the end of the big stuff as far as this building. We've still got a lot of work to do outside, and more construction coming, and we're going to add another lodge over on the other side of the property. We're going to take down the middle cottage here because it's trying to take itself down by shifting, and we've had to shore it up a number of times over the years so it's safe and usable. But eventually we're going to get rid of that and then finish filling in the lot down here, and we'll have a dining facility next door, and we're going to improve the look of the fuel area down by the waterfront. The marina, there's always something to do with the marina.
I'm sure. I want to talk more about the marina in a moment, but as far as the accommodations that are available for people here, there's rooms in the Lighthouse, of course. You also have the cottages. How many other buildings?
We have 3 other cottages, and they sleep up to 6 people. The Lighthouse at present can sleep up to 8 people, and now with the 2 bathrooms, it's doable. We've had 5 or 6 people. Once in a while, we'll get 7 or 8 to spend the night, but I've made it very clear there's only 1 bathroom. Well, some people that's deterred some people from coming, but now with the 2 bathrooms, and we don't want to overstress the septic system either. So we're very cognizant of that. So we're not looking to have this place rented 24/7 to 8 people. Ideally, it's 2 downstairs, maybe 3 or 4 upstairs, or a family of 4 or 5. Somebody that's not going to really give us but we'll maintain it. It's a good system. It'll, we take care of it. So we have that option for up to 8 people. Ideally 4 and 4.
Is it by the night, by the week?
It's by the night. We have a 2-night minimum. 2 nights seems to be probably the most desired, although we get a handful of week-long reservations every year, and a handful, maybe 4 or 5. Which we like, because that we don't have to come back in here for a week. We've got a guest for a week, and swap their towels out halfway through it. And they have a great time, and they go travel, or they go to the beach, or they take some charter boat trips or whatever. So anytime between 2 and 7. Once or twice we've had somebody stay longer than 7, but rarely they don't.
Yeah. So if people rent the Lighthouse, did they get the use of the kitchen for cooking?
Or
Yeah.
If they rent this floor.
Uh-huh.
If they rent just the upstairs, then they have a small fridge. Again, this is all new, so we're feeling our way a little bit with what's the best way to advertise it and market it to make sure that people, of course, they're going to know that they don't have a kitchen if they want just the upstairs.
Right.
And obviously there's a pricing structure that varies. Downstairs is one price, upstairs is one price, which are different prices. And the whole Lighthouse, of course, you're taking the whole place, so that's going to be the combination of the two with some savings by taking them both.
Yeah. So obviously the other huge part of this operation is the marina, as you've mentioned. And so what's available? What kind of facilities are there?
Well, we have the docks. We have 24 slips. Of those 24 slips, 7 of them are occupied by very professional and expert fishing charter captains. And they will start their season when I get the docks in, usually the end of April or early May. In October, we pull the docks every year because the river will freeze, and then that shifting ice will tear the docks apart. So they come out of the water before the snow flies. In addition to those 7 charter captains, we have probably 6 or 7 private boat owners who have been with us, again, every year since the first year. So the 14, 15 docks are taken for the whole season. The rest of them are for people who want to bring their boat up here, rent a cottage, or somebody that has a camp nearby but doesn't have a waterfront facility or waterfront access. They will rent a dock for us for a week, a month, 2 months, or the whole season.
Yeah.
So we're trying to stay flexible. It's a balancing act as to how many docks I let go for the whole season, because when August gets here and those king salmon get to this side of the lake, the town explodes. The boaters explode. The boaters don't have to go very far out in the lake, so they can go out there with a 20 or a 22-foot boat rather than a 26 or a 28 or a 30-foot charter boat.
Right.
Those guys can go, pretty much until the waves are more than 6 feet, so to speak. But they'll go after it even if it's a little bit rough out there, because they want to satisfy their customers, of course, for the king salmon or lake trout or brown trout or coho.
Okay.
And it's a tremendous fishery from the middle of April until the salmon actually run up this river right here to spawn. And when they start running up the river, as I said, the town explodes. Thousands of anglers wading with a D in the river up in the middle of Pulaski, elbow to elbow, trying to catch salmon that are running. It's a tremendous scene every year. From here, from the Salmon River Bridge, which is a mile from our property, from there all the way into town, there are many, many spots where it's not too deep to wade, and they will fish from first light to when it gets dark, day after day after day after day.
Wow.
That's when our charter business shuts down. Once they make the run, then the guys go home with their boats for the winter, and we get ready to start pulling the docks out and stack them up and put them back in the next April or May.
Yeah. I'm so glad to hear that salmon fishing is still so
it's phenomenal. It's world renowned. Absolutely world renowned. Yeah. And these aren't little fish. These are big. Yeah. These are big fish.
Yeah. You're making me hungry. I love salmon.
Really.
Yeah. Do you get do a lot of the people who come to stay at the Lighthouse or in your other homes here, are they fishing people?
Yeah, once August gets here, it's all Lighthouse and all 3 cottages and the two homes across the river. 100%, 95% fishermen. And many of them bring their own boats, and they get a dock for the time they're here. They put it in the water. Now they've got their own little place they walk out of their cottage at 5 o'clock in the morning, get on their boat, and hit the lake until they limit out or until they get tired of catching fish.
I can't imagine anything much more perfect than that, staying at a lighthouse and doing salmon fishing. That's great. Let me just ask you, I'm sure there's plenty to do here. Obviously, fishing is the number one attraction, but there's something called the Salmon River Falls Unique Area. And
it's 110-foot high falls on the Salmon River up above the reservoir.
Yeah.
and it's a gorgeous spot. You can hike down to the bottom of the falls, or you can hike to the top of the falls, and it's quite a popular attraction. It's nice to go take pictures and listen to the rush of the water plummeting to the area below. We also are very close to the Thousand Islands, Alexandria Bay, Clayton, New York. Very, very, very popular tourist destinations during the warmer months. I mean, November to March, not so much, because they pretty much shut down. There are obviously year-round motels that operate up there, and they have year-round residents. But between the Thousand Islands, Alex Bay, and Clayton, it's in addition to all the 30 lighthouses along the Seaway Trail from,
I was going to say,
from Buffalo to the Thousand Islands. I mean, people come from all over to knock out as many of those as they can. In
addition to people who are so into the fishing, you must get lighthouse buffs staying at the lighthouse.
We do. We've had a passport stamp for many, many years. One of the first things I did when we got here was find out what the story was on our passport program, again, as I researched lighthouses, and we realized that we really didn't have a good stamp for our lighthouse, so we paid to have one recreated that was a much more accurate depiction of what we have here with accurate information on it. And we get I get letters all the time in the mail of somebody who says, I was at your lighthouse in November, but it looked like you were closed, so here's a picture. I was really there. Can I have a stamp? Here's $1. So I always take the stamp book, passport stamp and stamp book home with me for the winter. And I'll send it back to them. And
I do the same thing with Portsmouth Harbor Light, where I live. I'm the stamp guy in the off season. Get those same letters. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you're part of the USLHS stamp program.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I have one final question for you, okay? And this one's for bonus points. All right. So get your number 2 pencil ready. What is your favorite thing, or what has been, since you've been involved here, what's been your favorite thing about your involvement with the Salmon River Lighthouse and Marina?
The response from the general public. I'm so proud of what we've done. And you can't see it, but there's a tear in my eye right now. I'm extremely proud of what our family has done to bring back to life something that really, really deserves it. And I guess that's the biggest thing. I love the people business. I love being in a business where we get to interact with the general public, young, old, black, white, green, blue, kids, grandpas, grandmas. The grandpa coming, finally bringing his 14-year-old son up here to go fishing on a charter boat because he didn't want to bring him when he was 6 because he was too little. So they'll come up and say, I was there 20 years ago with my son, and now I've got my grandson. And it's I think that's the number one thing that we made a difference. We made a difference, and that's all you want to do in life. If you spend 70 years on this earth and don't make a difference, then why were you here? So that's really as corny as it might sound. That is the pride that goes, and the fact that it's a complete family thing, from my mother-in-law to my nieces and nephews to my brother-in-law to my now wife, and the history of going back in this area from being here. My father-in-law, who's deceased, came up here in diapers with his grandparents back in the 40s and 50s. And when the time was right, he and his wife came up here and bought right across the river from here and built the camp, which has expanded over the years. And camp has always been the number one spot for our family, our kids, our grandkids. When are we going to camp? When are we going to camp? And that's the same way we were back in the 70s, and it's the same way my wife and brother-in-law were when they were little tykes, long before I ever met them. So having the opportunity to do this and the support and the resources to do it in a logical and a purposeful way. We had the chance to take grant money, but the problem with grant money is that you lose some control over what happens because the person giving you that money wants to control it. And we never looked at it like that. We knew we were going to research things, we were going to do things the right way. We knew we might have to do them a little slower because everything costs something to do it, especially in this day and age. And so we've patiently kind of nudged it up in quality, and now, like I said, I think we've pretty much hit the end of the big list Now it's going to be just a little bit tweaking here and there.
Right. Well, you never finish, but you've done so much.
No, you don't want to. You always want to have people wanting to come back to see what we've done lately.
Yeah.
And that's a trick I learned from the Thousand Island Bridge Authority people who are doing Bolt Castle up in the St. Lawrence River. It's like Disney World, They always want to change something and get people to stay interested.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, on every level, it's just congratulations to you and your family for what you've done here, and thank you for what you've done. And I thank you on behalf of Lighthouse buffs, seriously, because aside from all the other great aspects to this that you've been talking about, you have preserved an 1838 lighthouse that otherwise might be lost, you and your family. And on behalf of the U.S. Lighthouse Society and lighthouse buffs everywhere, I thank you for that.
Well, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, your passion for all this comes through very clearly. So, and I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Thank you for hosting me and my friend Jim Malone, who's just stepped back here, and we really appreciate it. Thank you for your hospitality. Thank you for your time.
It's been our pleasure. Thank you.
To learn more, go online to salmonriverlighthousemarina.com. You can book a stay at the lighthouse on the site, and there's also information about local fishing charters.
Thanks again to Abe Ellis and his wife Kathy for their hospitality and the interview, and thanks to my friend Jim Malone for all his help in getting me to the lighthouse there, in addition to a bunch of other lighthouses in New York State during our trip in June. Between the New York trip and my Michigan trip in April, I got to see a bunch of amazing Great Lakes lights I had never seen before.
Thanks, as always, to all the volunteers, members, and staff of the U.S. Lighthouse Society. Go to uslhs.org to learn more about the Society's tours and all the things the Society offers. Don't forget that donations and memberships help support this podcast.
Please share word of this podcast on social media, and if you listen through a platform that allows you to post reviews, please rate and review us.
The Indian lawyer and politician Mahatma Gandhi once said, quote, "In the midst of darkness, light persists," unquote.
To all our regular listeners and to our new ones, thank you so much for listening, and
keep a good light.
Shine, let it shine.